in my head, I had made up my mind. I knew it was going to happen. And I went on and bought all of the things to get it started and posted a post saying, come back tomorrow, there will be a recipe here. And then I went out and bought the ingredients and made the recipe that night and took the photos that night and wrote until like 1 a.m. because I was determined there would be a recipe there the next day.
That was Sabrina Snyder, and this is episode 82 of the Chopped Podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Marley of the blog Namely Marley. I'm your host, and this is the Chopped Podcast. You know this is the podcast designed for people just like you, bloggers who love food. Each week, my goal is to share with you interviews, thoughts, stories, everything related to food blogging so we can all learn together about what works with food blogging and maybe even a little bit about what doesn't. Today I'm talking to Sabrina Snyder. She's of the blog Dinner Than Dessert, and today we're talking about the fast-growing food blog. I know it's something we've all dreamed about, right? Growing our food blog from 0 to 500,000 page views a month in less than a year. But for Sabrina, this was more than a dream. It's actually something that she did. She started her blog with only a few page views per month. And then she worked hard and recently celebrated her year anniversary, and she published the results on her site. I was so surprised. I was really actually very inspired because her results show that she was getting over 500,000 page views per month in 1 year. Isn't that so great? So I asked Sabrina to come onto the show, and she was more than willing to talk about the things that she did, kind of like her journey of getting to this point. The thing that I'm worried about is this can sound like an overnight success. And to be completely honest, I actually don't even think I believe in that. I'm sure it happens sometimes, but I think oftentimes there's a lot of work that goes into the background. And then, oftentimes we don't see that. So if you listen closely to Sabrina's story, I think you're going to hear that she's actually been working on recipes for years. And I think that kind of set her up to be in this position to take advantage of the work that she's put into this previously. But that said, she also spent time improving her food photography and perfecting the art of writing her posts so that they were SEO friendly. Like I say, she talks about all of this. I think you're going to find it so inspiring. I am inspired, and I can't wait to share this interview with you. But first, a quick word about the Chopped Conference. If you've been listening to the Chopped Podcast for a while, I know that you've heard this theme. When I ask successful food bloggers their favorite tips for helping food bloggers get ahead, it's to network with other bloggers. And one of the best ways to do that is to go to a food blogging conference. But you can't just go to any food blogging conference. You want to go to a conference that will help you connect with amazing people in an inviting, collaborative environment. That's what we strive for at the Chopped Conference. It's our number one priority. We will learn, network, eat, make friends, and have fun while we're at it. So go to choppedcon.com today and click on register. I can't wait to see you there. Okay, let's get straight to today's feature interview with Sabrina. So put on those earbuds, turn up the volume, and let's talk about all things food blogging and so much more. Hey everyone, I'm happy to have Sabrina Snyder of the site Dinner Than Dessert on the show today. Hey Sabrina, welcome to the Chopped Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm really looking forward to talking with you because you recently published a post about your first year blogiversary and that you're celebrating 500,000 page views in the previous month before you published that post. And that's so exciting. I know there's so many questions I've got to ask you, but first, let's just take a step back. And I just wondered if you could just tell everybody why it is that you started your food blog.
Oh, sure. Well, I had been a private chef for many years before the blog, about 8 years. And I also had 2 young kids, toddlers. And it had gotten to the point where, getting to a client's house and getting back was just like a jigsaw puzzle every day. So I decided that I was going to move from cooking in people's homes to doing the blog full time and replacing my salary. The goal was to replace my salary within a year. So I kind of jumped in head first with the whole blogging thing.
Yeah, that's great. And did you accomplish that goal?
Well, I mean, not months 1 through 11, but month 12 was pretty good. So, so if it continues, then sure, yeah, I actually did. It was pretty
Yeah.
great. Months 1 through 3, I think I joked at one point that I could have like gone to Red Robin by myself and gotten a burger and no drink. But month 12 was much better.
So did you just stop the private chefing and go into this whole hog, or did you, kind of slowly integrate them?
Um, well, I was really fortunate because the private chefing was something that was always sort of an additional thing that I could bring in.
Yeah.
Once my husband, well, he's an attorney, but once got his career started, it was a lot easier on us. But I kept some of my favorite sort of dinner party clients and once in a while clients. I definitely dropped all of the weekly stuff. So
I see. So
it,
then you could do special events or things like that.
yeah, definitely.
Ah, it's nice to have a career like that that can career is maybe an interesting word, but something that you can segue a little bit to help out.
Yeah. No, it was great to get to say, this is not part of what I can do for you right now, but I can offer you this. And then people would
Right.
say, well, I'll take what I can get. And yes,
Yeah.
let's do that.
Okay, so you're a private chef, so that kind of signals to me that you've been interested in cooking for a while.
Yeah, when I was in high school, even when I was a kid, I used to watch Martin Yan and I'd be the one like furiously writing down ingredients on a little notebook piece of paper because again, no internet back then. So I mean, maybe I'm dating myself. I'm in my mid 30s, but there was no internet back then, so I was the one that was obsessed with all the chefs and everything on PBS and everything else. So for many 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 years, until high school, I actually wanted to go to culinary school, and my mom and dad said, maybe not culinary school. So I got a degree in government instead, and and then found my way back to food shortly thereafter.
Yeah, because that's good degree in government is so much more practical, right?
I know, right?
Yeah, there's so many things that you can do with that.
Oh yeah.
I like it though because you appeased your parents, and in the end, you chose what you wanted to do.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I read on your site that you actually had a site for around 7 years. That was
Yeah.
the site for your private chefing?
Yeah, so Dinner Then Dessert was actually built in, I want to say, 2008,
Uh-huh.
and it for many years was the site for my personal chef business. And when I started the blog, I sort of moved everything over to personalchef.dinnerthendessert.com so people could still access it for the few
I
events that I
see.
was doing.
Yeah.
But Dinner Then Dessert, the blog, sort of took over the main domain.
It's
I'd had the name for so long, it felt natural that that would be the blog's name. And little did I know at that point how awesome it was for SEO. So,
it's a great name because it's
yeah.
got dinner and dessert in it and
And luckily, in my favor, it had domain age that came along with it because, it'd been up for so long.
Oh, that's very good. That's very
Yeah.
good. Yeah, a lot of good bonuses from that. And you had the
I know,
opportunity. It was
right?
like a little playground for you, right? You got to learn from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool. Okay, so what about, I mean, one of the things that I think when somebody's starting a blog, they're always worried about their food photography skills. I mean, did you come into this knowing how to shoot, or did you have to kind of learn as you went along?
No, totally learned as I went along. I mean, but the thing is, I embraced it. Like, I knew, and I'd looked at some other food blogs, and I'd gone back and looked at some of their old posts. And some of the most successful food blogs out there, look, it didn't look as good as it does now when they first
Right.
started. And that's totally okay. And I
Yeah.
embraced that. When I look at my first post, I mean, I'm proud of it. It was taken
Yeah.
in my kitchen at night under kitchen lights. It could have just as easily been taken on my iPhone because the quality was so poor. And I won't reshoot it, even though it's one of my favorite recipes, because it's endearing. You got to start
Right.
somewhere, and it's totally fine if you start where you start.
You know that saying, like the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, and you actually
Yes.
you have a photograph of your first step.
I know, isn't that great? It's like your
Yeah.
dollar bill on the wall. Like
Yeah.
it's so easy to go back and look at it and just be proud
Yeah.
of it because you were so proud of it when you took it that first day.
I like that. That is a really good thought about that first post. Don't
Yeah.
change that photograph. Keep it the way it is, you know? That's really good. So, what kind of camera do you shoot with?
So right now I'm actually upgrading probably next month. I'm shooting with a T3i and
Okay.
I'm getting a 6D. So
Nice.
moving on up the Canon world.
Moving
And
on up. That's
I know.
right. So
I've gotten
okay.
the hang of RAW, I've gotten the hang of, different settings on the camera, so I'm jumping in head first.
Love it. So, do you have any tips on how you learned? Did you just go to Google and start searching, or did you go to a course or anything?
I had Lindsay's book, and that was really helpful. Tasty
Oh,
Food Photography,
yeah.
and I just honestly, it was trial and error. I mean, there were a few photos I want to say that I sort of ha- it was like a happy accident. I don't even know how those photos came out of
Yeah.
what I knew, what I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
And so as that happened more and more often, I kind of realized, well, this is the time I should be
Yeah.
shooting.
Right. Yes.
And this is what natural light can do to things.
Yes.
So, it kind of all just sort of, it was like Bjork's sort of 1% philosophy, and it just sort of like built on itself until it got
Yeah.
beaten into my own head, with so many photos. My first few shots, photo sessions, I think I took 400 photos
I know. I
of
know.
each dish.
Yes.
So, you know,
I like to say about my food photography that I was like a broken clock. I was, broken clock is right twice a day, like sometimes I take
yep,
these shots I really loved, but I think they were mostly accidents. But
yeah,
eventually
pretty
you start to,
much.
you're like a private investigator. You put the pieces together and you're like, oh, okay. Like you say, this is the best time of day to shoot. That's good.
Yep.
I like that. And if anybody doesn't remember, Bjork and Lindsay they were in episode 2 of the Chop podcast, and they talked about that 1% infinity program basically as like, don't pressure yourself to be Picasso tomorrow. Just know that you're on a plan, and every day that you're working at it and you're making progress, that's all it takes.
It actually spoke to me when I first read that they had said that. And the thing that was so important to me was that I actually had intended to start the blog in the beginning of 2014. And in my head, I thought, well, I'm going to make all these
Mm,
recipes and take all these photos and get everything looking perfect before I start the blog.
oh,
And then it didn't happen.
right.
I got busy and it just didn't happen. And so
Yeah.
when I decided to start this blog, I in my head I'd made up my mind. I knew it was going to happen, and I went on and bought all of the things to get it started and posted a post saying, "Come back tomorrow, there will be a recipe here." And then I went out and bought the ingredients and made the recipe that night and took the photos that night and wrote until like 1 in the morning because I was determined there would be a recipe there the next day.
I love it. You let your audience be your accountability, huh?
Yep. No backlog whatsoever.
That is great. And you know what? I think it's just another example of how perfectionism is a creativity killer.
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes.
We all want to be like perfect. And I think perfect is just so stupid. Don't even go there. Just
You know, and I
be.
and
Yeah.
I had people who reached out to me after the blogiversary post, and they were like, "Oh my goodness, how did you do it? I'm working towards it. I want to start it in 2 months from now. I have all these posts." And I'm like, "Just start it right now. Like
Yes, do
literally,
it.
don't even keep talking to me. Go get started and go put your first post up right now. Like that's the best thing I can tell you to do."
I love it. That is great advice. Okay, so I'm just curious based on this first year. I mean, we won't refer to the first 7 years. That was sounds like to me like that was more business focused. But as far as the
Yeah.
blog, and you've been doing it for a year, so what's been your favorite part about that so far?
I think the thing that I've enjoyed about it is that it actually just lets me get my recipes out there. And I have clients who are so excited to see the things that they used to eat on a weekly basis appear on the blog. Some of them
Yeah.
get mentions on the blog, so they
Ah,
appreciate that.
yeah.
It's been fun because for so many years I've enjoyed so much sending people links or recipes. And now to actually have that be sort of out there in the world where
Yeah.
people will come across it and make it and say, wow, that was awesome. Whoa, that's totally on my side.
What was that?
That was the weekly test. I didn't even know the
Of the
TV was
public
on.
broadcast system.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
okay. I
I
kind
did
of
not
like that. I
expect
think we should leave that
that.
in. What do you think? You want
That
to
was
redo it?
awesome. Sure.
I like
No,
it.
that's fine. I don't even mind. So
Good.
that's real life.
That is real life. Yeah.
And there was a cartoon on pause behind it. So there you go. Real life.
Too good.
No, so I think that the thing about it was that, you know, it's funny because I used to look at blogs. I've loved reading blogs forever and go to Pinterest. Before Pinterest happened, I had bookmarks in the thousands on my, Internet
Yeah.
Explorer. And to know that one of mine is out there is so much fun.
Yeah.
So when I'm on Pinterest and I randomly come across one of mine, I
Isn't
get
it
so
cool?
excited.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was Googling for something. I can't even remember what it was. And my husband was sitting next to me and I just had blindness to it. But one of my recipes was like the second result. And I was looking past it and my husband's like, are you not going to comment on the fact that that's your recipe? And I was like, oh my God,
Oh
it's just
yeah.
right there. So, there's fun things like that. And I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of enjoyment to take from that. And you can, if you're enjoying it, you can forget also that it's
Yes.
just business as well. I mean, there's fun.
Right. I totally agree. Sometimes it's so easy to get caught in the weeds. You forget to know that you're in this beautiful forest, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so has there been anything about food blogging that you've kind of felt like you didn't like so much?
Before AdThrive took over my ads, I can tell
Oh,
you I hated every minute of it.
oh
I
yeah.
hate and it was just a struggle and I was like, forget it, I don't care. And I mean at the time I had so AdThrive took over obviously at 100,000, but at the time I
Yeah.
had like let's say 80 or 60 or whatever it was. So it's not like you're going to be, paying your mortgage on the ad income, but I did not care. I didn't even want to go near it because it was so frustrating to me. So that side of it, I find that when I don't like messing with a part of the blog, I find somebody who'll do it for me.
Yes.
So I've built a team around myself that's just a few people. One tech guy who, I mean, he's the best. And, my media temple hosting, like they're always there to help me when I find myself in a situation I've created for myself that I shouldn't have done. And the ads are taken care of. So all of the stuff that's sort of not the fun side, I totally farm out. And there's been trial and error. There were ads before AdThrive. I had a host before Media Temple. So like I've kind of figured out who the best people that I trust completely are. And
Right.
so I've given them the tasks that I have no desire to do.
I think that's so smart because that lays the groundwork for you to be able to spend the time doing the things that you love doing.
Yes.
And the
I think,
more
yeah,
we can do the things that we love, the better.
definitely. The less time making waterfalls for ads, the absolute better.
Oh, yes. Oh, I just remember the first time somebody explained that to me and I thought my head was going to explode.
Yeah.
Really, I don't really think I want to know how to do this. Especially if you try to track it yourself. And I know Andy and those guys, they know how to set up the spreadsheets. I mean, they've got that all set up to track it. So it's great
They
stuff.
do, and they're the
Yeah.
best. I love them.
So let's get straight to this. So you had a site for 7 years, but just last year decided to start your own, turn that into a blog, and as a result, now you've gotten. Remind me again, you're up to 540,000 page views a month.
So the month of May, I had 597.
What kind of traffic were you getting in those first 7 years? Was it anything like that?
No, no, I think it was like 25 hits a month.
Okay, okay. Wow, that is a
No,
big adjustment, right?
yeah, no, that was
Yes.
huge.
So in that year though, let's just talk a little bit about that year because in that year you published 288 posts. And so, with a little bit of math, I can figure out that's a little over 5 posts a week.
Yeah, in the beginning, I was doing 7 posts a week because I wanted to build the database.
Nice. That is a great way to get started now, but that is also a lot of work.
A heck of a lot of work.
You were probably cooking all the time, huh?
I was doing, well, that's the thing. So, as a private chef, like you're used to having 6 burners going at once and 2 things in
Okay.
the oven. And,
Yeah.
so all of that was second nature to me. So, in a weekend, I would do 30 or 40 recipes.
Oh my
So, right
goodness.
now in my folders, I probably have 50 or 60 shots in the can that haven't been edited or, written.
Okay, I'm just trying to like translate that into my life because on the weekends I like to do our recipes on the weekend as well, and we'll probably do 5 to 10 on the weekend. I can't even. My head's just trying to grasp 30. That's a lot of recipes.
Yeah, no, it's a lot.
But then you probably spend the week then writing those posts and getting the recipes. Get the technical side of the recipe ready to be going.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, the thing is that I have the benefit of the fact that I just have a database of recipes that I know and that I've cooked for years.
Yeah.
So that part I
Right.
think really cuts out a lot of the legwork
Oh,
because if you're
sure.
doing recipe testing,
Yeah.
I mean, I can completely imagine that you would spend a day or two testing and
Yes.
retesting the same
Right.
recipe, and that's perfectly logical. I've done that, for
Yep.
years. But because I have a backlog of recipes that I know that I completely believe in the set of ingredients and the set of directions, it's easier for me to then say, okay, I'm going to do these 15 today, or I'm going to do 20 today, because I know
You're
those
just cooking
recipes.
them, right?
Yeah. The cooking is the easy part. The
Yes.
blogging is the part that you spend 15 hours a day researching.
I know it's true, isn't it? Because there's keyword research and,
Oh yeah, everyone wants to make Google happy.
I know. So I'm just curious on the progression of your traffic. Like, did it start out at 200 page views the first month and then 1,000 the next
Oh,
month and
sure.
like 500,000 the next month? Or how did that work?
So the first month we had Google installed incorrectly, so
Ah,
it showed as about 3,000.
okay.
We got it corrected, and all of a sudden it went from 100 page views to 600 in a day. So I won't really know the first few weeks ever,
All right.
but the second month I was at, I want to say about 6,000, and then the third month I was at 30,000, and then after that it was at 100.
Wow. So
And then I sort of plateaued there for a few months. It was like 100, 103, 108, 115, and then that was November, and by December it was 190. And then January was 345, and then February was like 397, and
yeah.
then April was 450, and then
Not that you have these numbers memorized or anything.
no, I know, right? No, maybe I missed a month there, because in May it was like 597, and the month before that had been like 519. I think
Yes.
April was 519,
Yes.
and then May was like 597. Yeah, so I mean, it started quickly, and then it leveled off for a few months there when I was sort of trying to figure things out and understand how to sort of take that next jump. And then Christmas happened, and I thought, well, I'm going to come back down after the 190 because, Christmas.
Right.
And then when December to January happened, I went to 345. I was like, what just happened here? And what I figured out was Google discovered it. I mean, my
Yes.
my Google traffic just exploded. So that had been incredibly helpful.
I imagine that that's because you have, I mean, I can see where dessert does very well around Thanksgiving, but you have both in your, in both in the title of your blog and recipes that you do.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about it is I took very seriously the list that Google publishes about what it cares about. And so I went through that list, and any low-hanging fruit that I could grab, I grabbed. Even if it's like the smallest indicator that it's going to help you, I just jumped on it. Like, I remember one of the things that was a maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't, was how many years is your blog registered for? So I went and I registered for 5 years. So it's good through 2020. Does it help that much? Probably not. But is it low-hanging fruit I can knock out? Yes. So I just did everything I could that was the easy sort of like busy work.
Yeah.
And then after that, I just sort of attacked all the different SEO articles that I could and did everything Yoast told me to do.
Ah, the Yoast gods, yes.
I know, right?
Tell me again about this list that you're talking about, just so that everybody else will, know what you're talking about.
Sure. So Google publishes a list of, I think it's just about 200 different things that it considers factors in its SEO rankings. And you can go find that list online. Like, it's just a really big PDF file and you can go through it. And they're not super secretive about it. I mean, there's some stuff that are kind of like rumors, like, does it really help you or does it not? But there are things that very clearly they lay out as things that they focus on. So things like, the markups in your recipes. I know a lot of people who don't use recipe plugins, and recipe plugins are great not only for the print button, but they're great because they include markup data for Google. So, there's lots of little things that if you go through it and you say, hey, can I achieve these things and knock them out one at a time, you'll find
Right.
that I think it's just going to help you with all of the easier things. And then you can concentrate on the things like choosing your keywords.
And the thing I like about that too is it creates a format for your recipe as well.
Yeah, it just keeps everything neater.
Yes, it does. Like, for example, we have our one that my husband created, but it people can print it out. It's just, I don't know, it's a nice recognizable format.
And I find that having the rating thing there really helps out with Google as well. Because it's fun sometimes when, you rank on a recipe and then the recipes around you don't have as many ratings.
Yeah, exactly. So what recipe snippet do you use?
I'm using Easy Recipe Plus, but there's a few bugs that are kind of creeping up, so I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to be using it. I haven't really looked into it, but I heard there's another one, Meal Planner Pro, I want to say,
Okay.
that I think that I might be looking into soon. But, anything that has that markup from everything I've read is the important part. And it has
Right.
helped. I mean, I have rich snippets in Google for a lot of my recipes, and God knows I wouldn't have coded that myself. So, I'm glad it's in the recipe plugin because
And
I
it's
don't
really
know
nice, I
it.
think, when you're searching for your recipe. I mean, like sometimes I'll search just to see where my recipe's falling on the page. And it's nice when you see that it's got that nice professional looking format compared to the ones around it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, good. So let's talk a little bit about where that traffic is coming from because I think you also broke that down in your post. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, of course. About 33-ish% comes from Google organic search. And again, that sort of jumped around Christmas time. Um, it's mostly, I want to say maybe a dozen or so posts, but the top of it are, Panda Express copycat recipes, which people adore. And, easy things. I find that the easier recipes are the ones that get just so many more hits. So things
Yeah.
like slow cooker chicken is really popular. Things like garlic pork, garlic honey pork loin, those are really popular. So about a third of my traffic comes from Google. And then after that, about 30% is the nefarious direct, which means we're not telling you where we're coming from.
Yeah, exactly.
so, so you just kind of gotta glance past that one.
Yeah.
And then next is Pinterest. So I know that a lot of bloggers have way higher percentages on Pinterest than I do. I'm sure that, they have the code cracked on Pinterest that maybe I haven't done yet, but
Mhm.
I get about a quarter of my traffic from Pinterest. So that makes up, almost 80% of my traffic. And then after that, it's usually just BuzzFeed and stragglers,
I think
you
any
know?
blogger that has gone through the great algorithm changes of, Pinterest and stumble upon and Facebook, I think most people would really appreciate, being able to crack the Google traffic gods then, you know what I mean? Because I think it's a little bit more steady.
Yeah, I mean, when the Pinterest update happened, I want to say, what was that, February?
Yeah.
I mean, I noticed when analytics kind of went haywire for
Yeah.
direct and not direct, but it didn't really impact my overall traffic, which I was so thankful for. But, if, Panda 3.0 or whatever Google wants
Oh,
to name
that's
the next
true.
one is comes out,
Yes.
I'm vulnerable for that one.
Yes.
Hopefully I'm doing what they like so I don't get hit with any kind of penalties, but
I think the biggest thing that they like, is, at least as far as I can tell, and is that you're providing recipes that people like and using your own voice and just speaking genuinely. I think that's really important.
yeah, no, I have read enough to know that hopefully I don't come across as spammy. I don't come
Yes.
across, you know, I don't.
Right.
I know they don't like when there's like 6 paragraphs of like your aunt's, you know, party and the recipe
Wedding.
she made.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I try and keep that to a minimum. I include it because you're human, and people want to know who you are as a human
Right.
being. But I kind of keep it to a minimum, and then I get right into the recipe. Oh, and lists. I
Yes.
love adding lists, and Google loves lists. So anytime I can say, here's 10 alternatives to this flavor profile, Google loves that stuff.
So is it important that that list is kind of close to the topic then?
Oh,
And
yeah. I mean, it's always like, so if, for example, um, I think I had like a mashed potatoes recipe, and then I said, here are 10 different options for, add ins to your mashed potatoes.
oh, nice. Yes.
So then there's a list in there. Google appreciates lists and it gives readers, alternatives to that
Yes.
recipe. And then hopefully in the future you'll make those 10 different versions so you can just
Yes.
remove
And
it and
link
link
back.
to it.
Yes.
Exactly. So yeah, I love anywhere that you can like give real information that helps somebody that's a list.
Right.
100% go for it.
Speaking of lists, are you growing your email list as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think I get maybe 15 to 20 new subscribers a day. I don't really have the like in your face email pop-ups anymore that I used to, and that's kind of hurt a little, but I've gotten really good feedback from readers that they appreciate not seeing the pop-ups, especially
Yeah.
when they're already subscribed.
Yeah.
So, I have ConvertKit and it's, after the post, and I think there's like one on the sidebar. So,
And do you send out like what, a weekly newsletter, or do you
no,
every
I legit I send it out every day. And I know
really?
that's like crazy to people, but I get about a 30% open rate and I get about 10% click through.
And it's just the recipe.
Just the recipe, yeah. I mean, it's like 150 words of, hey guys, here's the recipe. Here's it's like the first paragraph and the heading and the
Yeah.
picture and click here and then my signature and that's it. Like it's the most basic email ever.
And I'm just curious, do you have it set up so that it just automatically that happens, or do you?
I so wish. So
Oh,
ConvertKit hasn't really done that yet. They're working
okay.
on it. But so now it just sends me a draft and I edit out the rest of the post and I just put my signature in and send it off. It takes maybe 5 minutes in the morning.
I see. And
But
so then the nice thing about that is people then can click on the link to see the rest of the recipe.
yeah.
Ah, smart. Okay, that's good. And they get that every time you post, right? So that's 5 times a week.
Yeah, they literally get 5 emails from me a week. You know,
Well,
I know people are like, that's overkill, but the rates are still good on the open. And I kind of feel like it's a habit that they're expecting.
yes,
So I don't really want to change it.
yes. I
And I
think
mean,
that
why not?
I think that's so smart. I think it's so easy. And I, I put myself in these shoes to overthink this kind of stuff. Do I do it this way? Do I do it that way? Do I do a newsletter and write all this stuff out? Or, do I put the pictures in? Do I not put the pictures in? It's like you can just drive yourself bananas over all that kind of stuff.
You know, I've kind of found that if people hate something, they'll let me know.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
so if they're not letting me know, and from what I can tell, the rates aren't bad in terms of open and click through, I'm gonna just keep doing it. And I
Yeah,
mean, I think that it's nice to wake up in the morning and expect something to be there and that it's there, and then I can just click on it and go to the new thing of the day.
yeah,
And I've noticed that other bloggers, they'll do it for every post. I mean, they don't do 5 posts a week, but so it's kind of a normal thing to expect that when a new post comes out that you might get that new post email. So I just kind of went for it.
So do you plan, I mean, is your thoughts for your business for the next year, is it to do 5 posts a week going forward as well?
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah, it
working so
is.
well for you.
I mean, the thing is with the 5 posts a week, I knew in the very beginning this was a tall order
Yeah,
because that is an awful lot of content.
it is.
But it's something that I was very okay with. And even even now sometimes when I'm not feeling the greatest and I'm like, "Oh, I just want to take a day off." But I know that someone's going to show up and they're going to be like, "Wait, where's my post?"
Right.
So it's fine, it's something that I've accepted as this is part of it. And
Yeah,
sometimes I don't do as much promotion that day, so I'll leave it for the weekend and do a little bit more promotion on the weekend. But
yeah,
getting the post out is something that I try really hard to not skip a day. So unless it's like a technical issue or I
yeah.
was at a client's event all weekend and I just can't do it, I usually pretty much do 5 posts a week.
Well, in some ways, I mean, I just hear you talking, and in my mind, I can envision, if you're doing 30 recipes on a weekend, that's that kind of gets you done for the month, really. You could just do that one time a month, right? And then you have all your recipes.
Oh yeah. Oh no. I mean, like, there's weeks that I don't cook.
Yeah.
Poor husband. But
Yes.
like
Oh,
some weeks
yeah.
I'm like, forget it. It's
I
just,
know.
I don't have to.
Order
I mean,
pizza because I'm not cooking. Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah.
So some weeks I'm like, I'm just not feeling it. Or if we're doing something on the weekend, like I
Yeah.
have I have a backlog. It's fine. And the first few months, I really, really could. I mean, I would do 20 a day on the weekends. And so I have a backlog. Worst case scenario, if we're traveling or something, like I don't have to feel stressed that like, I have to get this post done.
Right.
The only time I really cook with a schedule is if it's sponsored content and someone gets me a campaign, then obviously I have to do that in a timely fashion. But usually it's just whatever I feel like, whatever's on sale at the grocery store and looks good, you know.
Yeah, that's
It's
great.
pretty stress free.
So let's talk about those sponsored posts. Do you feel like getting to this level of traffic has opened up more opportunities for you to get sponsored posts?
Yes. So yes. The thing with me and sponsored posts has always been that I don't want to accept what I can at the expense of the blog. And I feel like if someone's reading the blog, they kind of already have a higher expectation because they're like, oh, she's a chef.
Right.
So it's hard for me to really qualify things that are pre-made products as a general rule. Like I don't use like cream of soup, stuff like that where I feel like it's a shortcut. No,
Right.
I get a lot of emails when I use a shortcut item. So I tend to stick to sponsored posts that are for single ingredients or at like I think the most prepared product I've ever used was a salsa.
I
But
see.
I do things like turkey meat or a cheese, things that are an ingredient. So at first it was really hard to get those. And so I'd get
Mm.
offered a lot of things that didn't really fit. So for the first 5 or 6, well, the first 3 months I didn't get any. But like, so for like months 4 through 8, I really did like one post a month that was sponsored. And it kind of sucked because you see things coming in, you're like, hey, $300, that sounds great.
Yeah.
But then you're like, no, I just can't. Like, I can't do it. So once the traffic started going up, I would get more and more things that were like, hey, here's this single ingredient item. Will you do a post on avocados? Yes, I would do a post on
Yes.
avocados.
Happily.
Yes, thank you. So, once the traffic started going up, it was much more, um, it wasn't like trying to wade through a huge sea of things that didn't fit, hoping to find something that would. It was actually things that would come to me, and they knew what I needed and they knew what I was looking for. And so it's just been amazing and a total blessing.
Can you talk a little bit about your income? I mean, you mentioned that you wanted to get the salary that was similar to what you were making when you were private chefing. And do you feel like, I think you mentioned that like this month was great. Do you feel like that's going to continue for you?
It's funny because in January I was so excited. I think the blog made like, I don't know, $3,000. And that's great, right? Because you started in April and here you are in January and the blog's going to make you $3,000. That's like a fantastic stay-at-home income.
Yeah.
And so every month you're kind of like, "Oh my gosh, is it going to continue?"
Yes.
Especially when there's sponsor posts and it's not just Ad Thrive.
Right.
And so every month since then has steadily increased. So, it went from like 3,000 to like 4,000 to 5,000. And then last month was like 7,000 and this month's like 8,500. So will it continue to increase at that rate? I doubt it. I mean, that's like really amazing that it's increasing. But I feel like the progression is natural. It's not like one crazy thing that was super expensive that I got to do. So I feel like the income will continue to grow, even if it slows its growth, which I would completely expect. I think that it'll continue to steadily sort of build on itself.
Right. And as long as you're at a point that you're content, I mean, at what point are you making enough that you are satisfied and you feel content? That's a good amount. Like you said, that's a good stay-at-home income or,
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
sure
in
you have your own
January, why
goals.
not?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, my goal is to just continue on a path where there's growth.
Yes,
I
I
don't
like that.
I didn't start with anything where I was like, "Hey, in my first year I want to make $50,000." Like none of that was part of the original goal.
Yeah.
In fact, the first year I was like the money basically felt like monopoly money because A, it was a really small amount of money, and B, like it's not paying anyone's bills.
Yeah.
So it kind of felt like just grow and concentrate on growing instead of like, like I was saying with ads, like instead of dealing with ads and killing myself over getting more ads in place so I could make another $30 that month, like I was just concentrating on the stuff that would be more long term.
Right.
So now that it's real money and it actually, feels like fully replacing my chefing income, it feels like it's a much more serious game now.
Yeah, that's
And so
great.
now it's just about just slow and steady. It's all just slow and steady growth.
That's great. And so you talked a little bit about, the if you were looking at your income as a pie like what percentage of that is based on the ads versus sponsored posts?
So Ad Thrive. So let's say last month, right? So Ad Thrive was about 4,500 of the 7,000. And then I have like a few affiliate stuff going on that was just a few $100s, and then the rest was sponsored posts.
Okay.
So I want to say at least 50% is usually the ads, because again, I tend to do, I think at most maybe 3 sponsored posts a month, maybe
Mm-hmm.
4. So I don't really get to the level of people who might have like 2 or 3 a week, which sounds
Right.
amazing income wise, but like I don't have that quantity.
Yeah.
So ads make up a really big portion of it.
Do you see yourself doing a book or something like that down the road?
Yeah, my husband was asking me about that. I Yes and no, but I think that when you make a cookbook, I mean, I feel like you do it more because you really, really want to make a cookbook. Because
Yes, I think so.
there's
Yeah.
got to be such a labor of love behind it because of the
Yeah.
amount of hours that go into it.
Oh, yeah.
So I would say yes, like if the right opportunity presented itself, I couldn't turn it down.
Right.
But is it part of the sort of meat and potatoes business goals? No.
Yeah, I kind of see what you're saying because it seems like as I've talked to people who have written books, there is a lot of work that goes into it, and there's not always a lot of huge financial gains as a
Yeah.
result. However, what I have heard people say is that there's these kind of side benefits, like you're considered more of an authority and therefore, invited to speak more often or things like that that come about from having a book.
Oh yeah. No, and I remember I used to follow a blog called Young House Love, and I remember when they did a breakdown once because I think people really assumed that since they had a book deal they were just instant millionaires. And they broke down the amount of hours it takes to make the book and they're like basically it's minimum wage, but you really have to love what you're doing because like to make the book is just so many hours and so much effort.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought to myself, yeah, I'd still do it. I would still totally do it.
That's when you know that you're doing what you love, don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I'm obsessed with cookbooks. So it'd be kind of cool if like one of my cookbooks was like on my shelf next to Michael Chiarello or Thomas Keller or something. Like that would be pretty
Yes,
nice.
that would be pretty
So,
cool. I think I
I
see
mean,
it in your
only on
future.
my shelf would it be next to those books. No one else in the bookstore would be like, we're going to put Sabrina right next to Thomas Keller. But I mean, on my shelf, I would. So that would be pretty cool.
That's right. Well, you have the alphabetical thing going against you as well, right?
I
So
know, right?
S and K, that's not going to go next to each other.
No.
So I love to ask people this question, and we got into it a little bit, but can you talk a little bit about the process you use for creating a single post? So let's say you've got that avocado sponsored post and you're making some kind of avocado taco or something, I don't know. And I'm just curious, what would be the process that you go, like you'd make the recipe and then you shoot it, and then how are you posting that on your site?
So I I like to search for things based off of Google and based off of Pinterest. Because if I had, let's say, the avocados, for example, I probably have, I don't know, a dozen or so really good avocado recipes that I know I could do. So, because A, it's a sponsored post, so that's a little bit more important too. I really want to deliver quality to the sponsor. I will search for what do people look for when they care about avocados that's not, avocado on bread. So I'll look at Pinterest and I'll type in avocado recipe. And if there's a theme to what's coming up first, then I know it's pretty popular for avocados. So I'm just going to
Mhm.
go for it. I'm not, I never, even in the beginning, I never would pick a recipe based off of like the easier SEO results. I always just was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to like go for that recipe that like you'd be crazy to go up against Food Network for. So I literally will take like the easiest sort of like most common awesome recipe for avocados and I will make that recipe. And assuming, I have a really good recipe for it. And then I'll make the recipe, I'll shoot it. It'll sit in the can for a few days while I can make other stuff.
Yes.
And then when I write it, it's always the same process for me when I'm writing. I'll edit the photos first and then I'll make my snippet. So my like two sentences, that's the subheading before my first photo. I always figure that out first. It's kind of, oh my god, this is gonna bring out my geeky side. It's kind of like my thesis. Like it's what
Oh,
my post is based on.
yes.
So, it goes in my heading, my subheading. It goes in every alt tag. It goes in my excerpt that's on the bottom of the page because since I'm using it as my subheading, it's not going to pull my excerpt as that. It's going to take the first sentence out of my first paragraph, which is totally different and not as, relevant. So I always add it into the excerpts section below. And
Yeah.
then it goes in Yoast, and then I figure out what my keyword is. And again, with my keyword, I go for it. Like, I think yesterday I put up, was it yesterday or today? No, yesterday. I put up coconut shrimp. And I literally made my keyword coconut shrimp. There's probably 400,000 coconut shrimp recipes out there. But if at some point I break into the first couple pages, that's going to
Yes.
be a pretty good return.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to, bet on the long term on it. And I just literally SEO'd the heck out of coconut shrimp. So, I know that some bloggers are like, but if I do, 10-minute mango coconut shrimp, like
Yes.
I'll get, immediate results. I just went for coconut shrimp. And so I'll pick my keyword and then I sort of control C it and start inputting it
Yeah.
everywhere I'm typing. Because,
Until
it's
Yoast
got
tells
to,
you it's too much, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
until there's like 7 coconut shrimp references in
Yes.
the post.
I think it takes a lot for Yoast to come back and say, okay, take it back a notch.
Yeah, I found that it's really easy when you're like this recipe. You're like, nope, this coconut shrimp.
Oh, yes, I catch myself doing that. I'll say this recipe and I think, no, that's another opportunity to say the name.
Yep.
Yep.
Every little bit helps, you know.
Yes.
And so all the alt tags have the snippet. The keyword is in as much as it can possibly be, and all of the images are named with my keyword.
Okay, I have to ask you, isn't it such a great feeling when you're writing a post and all the lights on yours are green?
Oh yeah. You
I
know,
want to
for a
go,
while,
yes.
for a while there, I had this one yellow one where it's like your paragraph or your keyword is not in the first paragraph, and it
Yeah.
drove me nuts until I figured out that it was because there was like a hidden line between that photo and the first paragraph. I just could not
Oh,
sleep that that yellow dot was there. So, so yeah,
yes.
I need to see green.
Yes, I totally get because the words are there. Why is it not recognizing it, right?
Oh yeah. Oh no, it drove me crazy. There's my perfectionist side right there. So yeah, I used to have in process shots. I would get a ton of feedback saying we don't need to know how you bread coconut shrimp or we don't need to know how you mash mashed potatoes. So I started taking out the in process shots and I noticed that the time on the page was significantly higher. So you would think it would be lower because there's
Yeah.
less post, but it was actually higher.
So you
So,
had processed photos, and then when you took those out, the time on the page went higher?
yep.
Wow.
And I think part of it is because people check out sometimes. Like they'll
Yep.
see, six or seven, either six or seven glamour shots or six or seven in process shots, and they just start scrolling.
I think it's true.
So I honestly, once I took those out, I also saw some pretty good results from it.
Well, hey, that's easier for you too, then, right?
Yeah, I think my time on my site right now is about a minute 45, which isn't like crazy long, but it's not super short either. So, it went up from I think I was at like 55 seconds before I took out the in-process shots.
Oh, that's good to know. I mean, I think sometimes we put pressure on ourselves to think, oh, we have to do the process shots. And I,
Yeah.
I will do a process shot when the moment strikes me, when I'm like, maybe I'm making a chocolate cake and the way the light is just looking so gorgeous on that chocolate cake, then, then I'll do it. But for the most part, yeah, I think it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I think if I were doing what's a good example? I think if I were doing like a seared scallop or something and I'm like, you really want this color sear, I might put that in the frying pan so you can like see exactly what I mean about this is how your sauce should look or this is how it should look. But really, most of the recipes are so approachable
Yeah.
that I don't know that you really need the in process shots, so I just got rid of them. And it saved me like an hour in terms of photo editing.
Yeah, exactly. Are you doing any video on your site?
No, no. No. If I post a week, sometimes something's got to give.
I know,
And I have
for
the
sure.
video arm and everything. I have the video set up, and I'm just like, maybe not this time.
I know, I
so,
know.
so I totally, there's always places to improve. I can 100% improve by adding some video to it, and I'm sure sponsors would love it too.
Yeah.
And I see great content from other bloggers that I know and love who make video. It's just, there's going to be a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old running around in the
Oh my
background that are
goodness.
like
Yeah.
crying and yelling and arguing over Cookie Monster. And there's only so much that you can do. So,
Exactly. So what about social media then? How do you feel like your presence is on, your social media? Do you have a favorite one? And if so, like how have you gotten to that point?
it's interesting, I think, because for me, Google has been such a focus
Yeah.
that my social media numbers have never really caught up to the level of traffic. So when I have companies reach out to me and they're like, "Hey, will you do this recipe for a product?" And I'm like, "No, I will
Yeah.
not." And and they say, "Well, what's your budget?" And I tell them they seem super confused because they're looking at the metrics they can see.
Yeah.
And so when I send them screenshots of my analytics, it's such a different ballgame.
Right.
And so it's something that is 100% on the radar for this year to really focus on. But Pinterest is probably the best in terms of the social media for me because it's so easy to automate parts of.
Yeah.
And it
With Tailwind or
yeah, totally. Tailwind. God, I love Tailwind.
me too.
Yeah. So, it's easy. I can set up a month's worth of Tailwind in like an hour and a half on a
Yes.
Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic for me because anything that can take over for me and just keep going is great. And so that's been a really good platform for me. I started seeing some growth with Instagram, and then with the change in their algorithm, it's kind of halted, and so I've lost a little bit of favor for it.
Yeah.
But it's something to focus on. I think if there's a downfall to the 5 posts a week, and I've told this to my husband too, it's that I think that you don't really have the hours to put into Facebook and Instagram.
Right.
So you kind
Something's
of have
gotta
to
give.
decide.
Yeah.
Yeah, something has to suffer. But it's all something that once you start earning the income that you're hoping for, or maybe earning more than the income that you had originally thought, you can hire a VA and, start having them set up, automation for you, or start posting for you on those social media
Right.
platforms. And that's kind of what my short-term goals are.
And you're getting
Now,
such great traffic. It seems like you could also put like a picture from Instagram, in your blog post and say, "Hey, are you following me on Instagram?" Put your own ad in there.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's actually funny because we're going to be doing a blog redesign in the fall. And so I've already started assembling all the little bits that I love from blogs that I've seen. And it has things like, share this on Instagram with this hashtag. Like it's going to pull
Yeah.
in other things to sort of push people to social
Right.
media as well. But I remember I can't, I can't remember where it was, but I remember listening to a podcast, and they said something to the effect of, if you're making an email to your list and you have links, don't put links to your social media. You're not trying to drive traffic away from your site. You're trying to drive traffic to your site. So for me, I'd always put all of this emphasis on getting people to the site,
Yes.
that I never really pushed people to social media. But I think there's also a value in that. I think in building the social media, there's definite value. So it's something that I have to focus on, trying to balance between how much do you try and just keep the traffic on the blog, and how much do you try and also grow
Yeah.
your social media as well.
That is a very good point. So in other words, if you're going to drive them somewhere from the page that they're on, why not send them to another page on your site, right? That's a good point.
Or Amazon. Always send them to Amazon.
Yes. I'm from Missouri, so our state legislature just totally screwed us over, and we can't participate in Amazon affiliates.
Oh no,
It's
that's
kind of a
awful.
bummer. I
I
know.
thought I had it bad because I have to pay tax on Amazon. No, yours is even worse.
It's worse. I know. But
Yeah.
Amazon basically said Missouri cannot participate. So it's so
Wow.
terrible. Yeah, anyway, don't get me started on that. I could go off on that.
No, I love Amazon because it's like Wikipedia basically. And it
Yes.
provides value to the reader. So if
Yeah.
I link to something on Amazon, like
Yeah.
for example, if I have like hoisin sauce in my recipe, a lot
Yeah.
of people might be like, what the heck is hoisin sauce?
Yes.
But if they click on the Amazon link, it'll actually teach them what hoisin sauce is, as well
Yes.
as a Wikipedia page could. So, there's that which actually provides them value. So
Right.
they don't feel like you're, shilling Amazon products.
Well, and it
And
saves your readers time. So, for example, I wanted to make the popsicles that had that kind of old-fashioned popsicle look. And the stores, the only ones I saw were these ones that looked like bomb pops or whatever. And it took
yep.
me a long time to finally find it, and it was on Amazon. And I would send, obviously I would want to send my readers to that link to get that, so they wouldn't have to go through the same thing I did.
Oh, absolutely. I'm obsessed with Amazon.
I know, me too. I'm on Prime. Are you on Prime?
Oh, heck yes. Oh, heck
Okay,
yes.
so I am just I love everything that you're talking about here. Just one quick question: what's your number one tip for helping another food blogger who may be just starting out on this journey?
Just start. I mean, honestly, don't stress about anything. Just get started, get the recipes out there, get them on Pinterest, and don't freak out about what traffic is from day one or day two. I used to freak out about the smallest things, like if Food Gawker would take my photo.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it doesn't matter in the long run. Just keep going. You just want to build a database. When people find you, they'll find you. And if you have, content, that's the most important thing.
That's great. Okay, so just some fun, quick questions here at the end of the interview.
Sure.
What's one food item you can't live without?
This is going to be really bad. If I had to go the rest of my life without Captain Crunch, I'd have a pretty hard time.
Oh, that is pretty bad.
You don't know how many times chefs will come home and eat cereal for dinner.
Really?
So, Captain Crunch is like the best. My husband thinks that's cardboard. I love it.
So is it the peanut butter Captain
No,
Crunch or
it's like legit original
the
Captain
original?
Crunch.
I love that stuff. I mean, it's really hard on the mouth. It can tear your
It
mouth
does.
apart.
It totally
I will
does.
cut you. That's
how
what
good it
Captain
has
Crunch
to
says.
be. You, he does.
Yeah.
That's how good it is. It's worth cutting up the roof of your mouth for.
There's something, it's got a magical formula about it, doesn't it? It's
Yep.
really good stuff.
Oh man, if I get offered a post for Captain Crunch and I have to turn it down, I'm gonna be so sad.
Oh, you could make like some Captain Crunch cookie with a
I
cereal in
can't.
it.
It's a secret pleasure.
I hope they call you soon. That'd be a great sponsored post. So, what's your favorite app on your phone?
Favorite app on my phone, Facebook. I mean, it's
Really?
the way I keep in touch with blogging friends. I
Yes.
have to be like, it's not even for marketing my own stuff. It's just because, and this is the same thing with private chefing, and I think that you have to come to terms with this really quickly. You're going to be lonely if you make a situation for yourself where you don't reach out to people. It's very lonely if you're sitting in your room and
Yeah.
you're writing these posts and taking photos by yourself. But if you
Right.
reach out and you build a network of people who you can bounce ideas off of, ask, how would you title this post? Do anything, just, build a community of people that you know and can talk to. You'll feel like you have a semblance of coworkers. And I think that's really important for happiness,
I think that's really important.
especially for me when you're stuck at home with toddlers. Like, you need adult contact.
Yeah, it's so true. And it needs to be people that you can trust, that you know that they're not
Yes.
trying to steal ideas or they're not freaking out over every little thing. They're level minded or whatever.
I mean, just as an example, like, you never know when it's going to benefit you. And not that you go into it to look for the benefit, but one of my closest blogging friends, who is a total sweetheart, she puts up a BuzzFeed post every day. And she has made an awesome situation for herself where she's like one of the top 10 community posters now.
Wow.
And if a recipe of mine fits in her idea, she always includes me. And it's like the sweetest thing. I mean, you never know when somebody that you're talking to is going to help you grow or you're going to help them grow. So it's just all about like being there for one another.
So she puts up a BuzzFeed post of like the top 10 or whatever recipes every day.
Every day, sometimes twice a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
She is
huge.
on the ball with BuzzFeed.
Yeah, that's
You
amazing.
should see her site. It's peasandpeonies.com.
Peas and peonies. I love peonies.
Oh no, her site is beautiful. She has beautiful flowers with all of her food. It's great. She's
So
really
how did she
sweet.
have time to do that and have beautiful photos? I just don't know.
And she posts a lot, and she has a kid, and she works full time. I don't know. She doesn't sleep. She's
Must
just.
not.
I
See,
know.
every time I think, when, if you think of your situation, you think I can't take anymore. There's somebody else who does. And, I guess you have to keep all that in balance.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to joke that if there was one more thing, I'd go nuts. But like the way she handles everything, I'm just like, nope, never mind. I can totally do more.
I'll be quiet now. Thank you. Yes.
Yep.
So do you have any time for TV at all? And if so, what's your favorite show?
Um, well, my husband jokes that if something's on, I've watched it 3 times and I still don't know what's happening because it'll be on and I'm not paying attention. But if it's on, it's
Yeah.
usually Bravo.
It's Bravo.
It's Bravo. I have
Yes.
the worst taste in TV ever. It's Bravo or it's Chicago Fire, and you're hoping they're doing something manly and saving like a little old lady or something.
So I don't know. Is Bravo's a network, right? It's a station.
Yeah, so it's like Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I'm
Oh,
totally
okay.
Team Vanderpump or, Top Chef or,
Okay.
stuff like that.
Yes. Well, it sounds like, whatever entertained you, that's all it's, I think as long as you're making the choice to be entertained, that's all. That's all
Look,
it's
if it's
about.
not My Little Pony, it's winning.
That's right. That's right. Oh, yeah, that's
If
right.
it's not Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, it is just amazing.
Yes, anything but that, please. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so how can people find you online?
Well, you can go to my site. It's a dinnerthendessert.com. That's THEN. I'm on Facebook. It's Dinner Then Dessert. So facebook.com/dinner then dessert or Instagram at dinner then, Instagram is at dinner then dessert is the handle, or just email me.
Love
I'm
it.
totally down. I love going back and forth with people. So,
Sabrina, this has been so much fun. I really enjoyed talking with you.
oh, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thanks so much to Sabrina Snyder for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. Be sure to go to choppedpodcast.com to buy your ticket to the Chopped Conference, learn more about today's show, and you can also sign up for our newsletter to get the latest on all things food blogging. Tune in next week as I talk with Anya Hoffman of Epicurious about how not to blog for other bloggers. It's something that we all have to resist, I know, and Anya has some great thoughts on it. It's a wonderful conversation, and you won't want to miss it, so be sure to tune in next week. I hope you're loving the Chopped podcast. You can show your support for the show by leaving a review on iTunes or Stitcher, sharing about the show on social media, or even leaving a link on your own blog or podcast. And you know I love getting your emails too. It all means so much. I hope you know you inspire me, and I hope today's show is helpful and inspirational to the work you're doing every day. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.